All right. And Josh, just let me know when when we're going and I can start.
We are live on YouTube.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, I now call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Welcome to ANC 1E's September General Body Meeting. A few administrative notes as we get started. Today's meeting is being recorded. Closed caption is available for each user by clicking the button on the toolbar below. Please submit questions through the Q&A function, also located on the toolbar below. Commissioners will be keeping an eye on the Q&A throughout the evening. If you are calling in rather than participating through the web, you may raise your hand by dialing *9 when we get to community announcements and other opportunities for the community to participate. I will now ask Secretary Jacobson to please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Footer. I will now conduct the roll. Commissioner Gallagher?
Present.
Commissioner Gallagher is present. Commissioner Lancaster? I do not see Commissioner Lancaster. Please raise your hand if you are here, but otherwise we'll go on to Commissioner Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Ray is present. Commissioner Brown?
Present.
Commissioner Brown is present. Commissioner Newland?
Present.
Commissioner Newland is present. Commissioner Jacobson, that's me. I am present. And Chair Footer?
Present.
Chair Footer is present. With 6 of 7 seated commissioners in attendance, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right, so per DC law, the ANC 1E meeting was noticed to the community via listserv, social media, website, and e-calendar. We'll now move to the approval of the agenda, and I will read through it very quickly. We have our consent agenda where we have 2 items. We'll have the community announcements and presentations where we have 2 special guests that'll be joining us. Then we have official business where we will break it down by our standing committees, Transportation and Public Space Committee, Zoning and Economic Development Committee, and Public Safety and Engagement Committee, where we have 1 resolution under transportation, 2 resolutions under the ZED, and 2 resolutions under PSE. And then we will end with the ANC 1E FY25 budget proposal. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda?
Chair Footer, I would suspect that the Moker's office and council member's office will be pretty quick, because I think they usually are. Might it make sense to have them go first in case they have other things to get to?
I actually told the other people that we would let them go first in case they have.
Never mind.
Yes. Oops. Any other questions or additions or edits to the agenda? All right, seeing or hearing none, I'll now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the agenda as written.
Is there any dissent? All right, hearing and seeing none, motion passes and the agenda is approved. Thank you very much. All right, now we will move to the consent agenda. Just a reminder, all matters listed under consent are considered by the commission to be routine and will be enacted by 1 motion. Any commissioner may, however, remove an item from the consent agenda by request. The consent agenda this evening includes the August 2024 minutes from, the minutes from the August 2024 ANC special public meeting. And a approval to reimburse myself for $245 for printing at UPS store 7175. Are there any items in the consent agenda that people would like to discuss further and move to official business? All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll now accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the consent agenda as written.
Is there any dissent? All right, hearing and seeing none, motion passes and the matters listed are adopted. Thank you very much. Moving along. Now to community announcements. Commissioners and members of the community can use this time to make public announcements, distribute information, or alert the community about issues. We have two special guests with us tonight. First, we'll hear from Mr. Andrew Rivers with Howard University, who will have 5 minutes. Then we'll hear from Miss Emily Alexander with the Macmillan Advisory Group, who will have 10 minutes. After each presenter is done, they'll take questions from commissioners and then the public. After our guest speakers, we will move to commissioners, then the Mayor's Office for Community Relations and Services, also known as MOCRS, then the representative from Councilmember Brianne Nadeau's office, then members of the public. All speakers will have 3 minutes. With that, we'll start off with Howard University's presentation from Mr. Andrew Rivers. If we can bring Mr. Rivers up.
I was having difficulty finding him.
Okay. All right. Mr. Rivers, can you hear us? If you are speaking, you are mute.
Here we go. I am back.
Right.
First of all, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Rivers, Director of University Events and Protocol at at Howard University, and I also serve as the Director of Crampton. If I can just quickly share my screen, I'm gonna walk through a PowerPoint presentation. It take no more than about 3 minutes, and then of course, provide the opportunity for any questions or answers. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about our homecoming. This year is our 100th homecoming, themed as the University Yard of Fame. We have scheduled events from Sunday, October the 13th through the 20th. However, this presentation will really focus on Howard's impressive and supportive icon in the community on the dates of the weekend, which is the 18th and the 19th. And so that's what we consider the homecoming weekend. As always, it's a celebration, bringing together our faculty, staff, and students, alumni, and friends of the university, as well as friends of the community, to take part in what we consider one of our traditions, but also in affirming our heritage. Being the fact that Howard was founded in 1867, and just in terms of our first Howard University being homecoming being 100 years away or ago, it is exciting that we will have reached this milestone for our centennial celebration. A couple of things on the 18th and 19th, focus on 3 major events. We have what we call the Yard Fest. That is the outdoor concert on Friday, noon to 6, which we have an array of talent that's going to be actually performing on our main yard. And then, of course, the next day is what we call our Family Day. That is where the concert piece moves to the side, and we focus on really the football game and the activities that are really family-oriented, family-focused from that standpoint. The homecoming parade is annual, again, starting from 10 to noon. Our football game this year is 3:30 to 6:30, which is a later game. So this year's Yard Fest will feature more of an old school theme from noon until 3, which I believe many will be able to enjoy and recognize some of the artists as well as the special DJs that we'll have on site. Recognizing Saturday as our Family Day, we're also having our annual Fam Fest, which is going to be in the lower part of our upper quadrant. It's called the Lower Valley, and it's a wonderful array of activities specifically designed for our little ones who would like to come on campus, indulge in a little Yard Fest for the students. It is being organized by WHUR, and it is very family focused, very kid focused. Some of our characters that we have on our WHUT station will be actually on site to not only play with the children, but a significant amount of interaction that I think they will find very inviting as well. This year, we will not have the tailgate experience on the Howard Center parking lot. So that really changes in terms of our focus, moving away from kind of like the open party atmosphere and really focusing all of our activities on the main yard of our campus. We have the International Fest, which I explained on the yard. Definitely, as always, we have entertainment and definitely vendors from culinary, merchandising, corporate sponsors. But we want to take into account there are going to be some specific street closures on Friday and Saturday. Mostly will be on our main campus, which is 6th Street, including some closures on Girard and Fairmont. And as I mentioned before, our Yard Fest new edition is the Family Festival in the Lower Valley. So it gives the parents an opportunity to come in and enjoy with their children activities that are definitely family oriented, definitely age related, and a great experience, and also invites for a memorable occasion. Community Parade, we're glad to be bringing that back as well, from 10 to noon on Saturday. And of course, our homecoming football game, we'll be playing Tennessee State University Tigers on Saturday, October the 19th. And again, it's a late game this year. So we will be beginning that game at 3:30 from that standpoint. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation to you in regards to Howard University homecoming, and definitely would offer the opportunity for any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions? Mr. Rivers?
Sorry.
Commissioner Brown, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. As a Howard alum, I just wanted to know what your definition of old school is.
So you may be surprised. So right now, we're always looking at, when I say old school, for those who may be in the age range right now between 45 to 60. I'm in that age range, so I'm just letting you all
I
know
join you.
But it's that range. It's kind of like, your DJ Nice, your Dougie Freshes, your I'm trying to think of some other, that kind of range and ages, your LL Cool J, those individuals that we'll be looking at for old school. It'll be pretty much we have a celebrity DJ that's going to really be spinning for about an hour and a half. And then we're working on a specific artist. We can't speak to it now because we're trying to finalize the contract. But it's always a fun activity. That's the nice thing about it, is you can come for the parade. Interesting enough, you can come with your children, because even on Saturday, it's very family oriented. So the key is that just come and just have a great time. Please do, Rashida. You got to do it.
Of course. And just for the community, can you just share with this ANC so that we can share with our constituents the road closures?
Sure.
Yeah.
So last year was an anomaly, and I'll be able to address that in a little bit. So most of our street closures on—
Really quickly, Mr. Rivers, I'm sorry, you had a presentation that you looked like you were trying to share, but we couldn't see it. Would it help articulate and visually see what the road closures are if you presented that right now?
Matter of fact, so on this one, it was a PowerPoint presentation, but I can show you the map. Would you like to see a map, or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let me see if I can pull up what we consider our map. Give me a quick second. But what I'm gonna do is kind of show you a map of the parade, so it'll give you a much better perception of what. Let me see if I can. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen one more time.
Please do.
And then we can look at specifically the maps that are associated with. Let me know if everybody can see the map.
Yep.
This is just the stadium. I'm going to actually zoom in on this map. What it does is actually kind of shows the current parade route with possibility of some modification. So if you look at, let's bring this out a little bit more. This is the Howard University campus right here. This is where the Yard Fest is going to be occurring. When we speak about the street closures, this is Fairmont, which is right by our stadium. Then, of course, the entire 6th Street, which runs from Fairmont all the way down to W Street by our dental school, medical school, that will be actually offline the entire day, both Friday and Saturday. Why is that? Of course, when you come up Howard Place off of Georgia Avenue, you can either go left or right. So when you go right, it's a one-way anyway. So so we kind of keep that closed. When you go left on 6th Street into the main campus, you're now running into, and specifically, all the major activity. But when it comes down to the parade, the closures are typically beginning at 7 a.m., coming down Georgia Avenue, and kind of looping around the hospital and coming back up on 4th Street. When those street closures happen, Brian, at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're all going to be shut down as a rolling closure. So what'll happen is the streets inside of the communities, they'll begin to kind of close down about 8 o'clock. And then by 8:30, they're closing down Georgia Avenue so we can begin immediately at 10 o'clock. Our parade is usually about an hour and a half. So all those streets, once we pass, the streets start opening up. So by the time we get to what we consider 4th Street here, Howard Place, all the streets are pretty much open. They're then at the last element. That's how our plan goes. Many of you may have, let me just kind of scroll down, just kind of show you the map of the yard so you can kind of see visually. This is the yard here, so you get a chance to see some of the setup. This is Georgia Avenue here. This is Howard Place. And that's where you get into all the activities on the yard from that standpoint. Does that help you, Brian?
Yes, it's perfect.
Let me
And-
explain what happened last year.
Sure.
That's always, I think it caught all of us by surprise. While our intent was those specific street closures relating to pretty much a parade. Once the parade is over, the street closures are really only maintained on one main street, and that's 6th Street. However, last year, we actually had a credible threat to the homecoming and a credible threat in the community. And because of that, MPD, Homeland Security, made a strategic decision to keep the closures in place. But what they did is they ended up expanding the closures. And so the difficult was for us is that was intel that we weren't privy to because, as you know, something of that caliber, they can't tell everybody. So that was the decision they made. What we tried to do is immediately after we began understanding how that closure extended, we tried our best to kind of communicate that to the local or using our own radio station, but we also reached out to the TV stations to give people what they consider a notice that heavy traffic, certain closures because of the events that surrounding campus. And so what they were doing, it was a preventive measure to help protect, recognizing when you think about that day, we have close to about 15,000 people somewhere within that a 3 or 4 block radius of campus. And so it became kind of a major security concern from that standpoint. Now, are we expecting that this year? No, but you just never know. One of the things I've been mentioning to our other commissioners, when I'm talking to other community groups, we're in a very, very, very interesting time. And yet also in terms of society. And so while we have the intent to do things that are designed to be favorable, designed to be memorable, there are elements, external that can prevent that or try to destroy that happiness as per se. So we just take it day by day. And unfortunately, we take the lead from our MPD and Homeland Security in that regard. One thing I do have to say, just quickly, is their concern was more ensuring that the guests still have a great time, but recognizing there were certain security measures that were required in order to ensure that.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Ray.
I heard you talk a little bit about canceling or not having, I should say, the tailgating event. Can you maybe talk a little, because as the person who thinks about the neighborhood, my immediate thought would be that if people are disappointed that they can't do it where they normally do it, that they might try to find their own place to go do it. So has there been any talk about this, or is the tailgate really a big part of homecoming, and is it going to be?
I hate to say, Michael, it was a significant big part. And the reason why is that it was an opportunity for a lot of our alumni groups, a lot of our D9. These are historically Black college, our Divine Nine, which is our Black fraternities and sororities. It was a reunion time. And so a lot of them really don't go to the football game. They listen to it, but they came to the tailgate, congregated, bought tents, cooked. I mean, it was a family fest of those individuals. The tough part is there were elements that began to influence negatively on the Yard Fest. And so I think over the years, it began to escalate, Michael, to the point where we became concerned for the safety of those that were there. Last year really elevated to some experiences that we became very concerned that I think at some point, when you reach a certain level of anxiety about an event, you then begin to think about things that could happen in a very negative way. So it became apparent that the city even realized, hey, Howard, we got to calm this down. We got to, kind of step back. And so what ended up happening, Michael, is that we decided to go ahead and cancel it. But the idea of a tailgate will still exist. And what I mean by that is we've had to stop it in that fashion for maybe a year or two and then bring it back. Any type of substituting? No. We recognize all of our lots are going to be used for parking. We do have a new security protocol in place to help facilitate and to eliminate those kind of impromptu tailgating that could occur from that standpoint. But we can guarantee that they won't be using our parking lots for any of that. You may ask, well, how are you going to do that on the Howard Center parking lot? Well, it's going to it's turning into the what we call our security headquarters. That's where we're placing a lot of Homeland Security, a lot of our HUPD, MPD type of monitoring protocols in place. Then we also taken all of our buses and blocking the actual parking lot in terms of where people park, so they won't be able to really congregate. And that lot will be closed by our HUPD with no access other than those who may have permits to park there.
Okay. Well, again, it sounds like a great event, and we look forward.
Oh yeah, we hope to bring it back, Michael. We really do. It's just, I think, under the circumstances, it was to our best interest. And then also the Mayor's Special Events Task Force Group highly recommended that let's take a pause on this event for now, and then let's review it and come back.
We're familiar with that group.
Oh, you I just do as I'm told at some point,
Commissioner Jacobson, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to ask about the route, which was already asked.
Okay,
great. I want to make sure that I heard the Saturday International Food Festival that typically, that's what typically happens in lot 3, the parking lot right below McDonald's. That's not happening in that same location?
That is not happening. That is called the Howard Center parking lot. All that activity is out. No existence.
Oh, that's
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, so Brian, you was one of the instigators. No,
yeah. I love that event. It's so much fun.
It is, So I guess this time, Brian, you got to come on campus and enjoy some of the family fest.
Yes.
So I think the key is that we not necessarily have to reinvent, but what we have to do is just, kind of take a modification that still provides that favorable experience and outcome. But I think the tough part is that people, don't get us wrong. We had a significant number of pushback about the canceling of the tailgate, but it's a call that we had no alternative but to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from commissioners? All right, hearing none, I'll turn it to the public. Members of the public, if you are interested in asking Mr. Rivers a question about Howard University homecoming, please raise your hand and we will call on you in the order in which we receive it. I do see that a member of the public is calling in rather than joining us online. If you would like to raise your hand, you can dial *9. All right. I see Patrick Nelson. Can we bring Patrick Nelson up?
Patrick should be able to unmute now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hi, Patrick. How are you?
How are you? I know you probably don't see me at my face, but you know who I am.
I do, Patrick. Yes. Glad to, as they say, glad not to see you, but glad you're here to join us in voice.
I just have a couple of comments. One is that and I'm sure you're aware of this, there has been some discussion over the years of phasing out the tailgate party because of the points that you made. And I'm a little surprised to hear that you're thinking of quote unquote bringing it back. The discussions that we had when all of the brouhaha started with it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when they had the gunfight on the yard and all that stuff. The university administration at that point was saying that they were going to stop doing it. That coupled with the fact that all of those lots over time are scheduled to be developed, and that process is moving forward. So I'm curious to see where the university thinks it's going to do a tailgate party in the future when there isn't any land available.
Well, one of the things you have to understand, not to interrupt you, Mr. Nelson, is that, again, we can bring our tailgate back, but it may not be on the Howard University campus or within vicinity of the community. One of the things we always look at is that we recognize the tailgate, is definitely a significant part of just homecoming itself. But what we're doing is we're looking at other opportunities within the district that afford us a space large enough that does not influence or cause any type of interruption to the community itself. So when I mentioned, Mr. Nelson, about bringing it back, I'm not saying that we're bringing it back directly on the campus or Howard parking lot, but I think there are other opportunities for us to look at ways that we can still gather and support the community, but not necessarily around the community of Howard University.
Which is fine. I'm not against the Yard Fest. I've lived here for 30-something years and I've gone to it on a number of occasions. So I'm not.
So let's make a distinction. The Yard Fest and the tailgate is two different entities. So I don't want you to believe or get people thinking
I'm probably
the Yard
saying
Fest is canceled.
Because I've been to both. So
understandable.
Yeah. And then the last thing I just want to point out and just make sure that is clear to the university is that there's multiple lots that are there, and it's important that I know that I addressed with the real estate team on one issue on a lot that's adjacent to Brian's building, and they moved the fence out, but I want to make sure that the university is aware that that lot has the ability or the potential for somebody to try and cut it open and get into it. So they need to keep eyes on that, because that's the lot that's adjacent to the one that's currently used on a day-to-day basis that is on Georgia Avenue and 8th Street.
It's the future home, the East Tower location.
Oh, yes. I know exactly. It's directly across the street from the Howard Center parking lot entrance. And yes, that is on target with HUPD to ensure that lot is also closed and not being able to facilitate any type of unfavorable activity.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that. I have some other things that I'll probably bring up tomorrow night at the other meeting.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thanks, Patrick. And I see that we have a question from Joycelyn Thompson.
Joycelyn, you should be able to unmute.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Good day, Ms. Thompson. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. The buses are going to be blocking Borough parking lot. Did you say that? Would that affect us on Gresham Place any?
No, I didn't say that. I said the buses will be blocking Howard Center parking lot, which is located on 8th Street by McDonald's. We will not be interfering with Gresham Street at all.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Glad I can assist you.
All right, well, I believe that's the last question. Commissioners, any final questions? All right. Hearing none. Mr. Rivers, thank you so much. As Commissioner Brown had mentioned, if you don't mind sharing some written materials about road closures and things of that nature, we would be happy to send that out to our constituencies.
So what I will do is we're finalized. Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow with several of the leads from kind of the administration, both Fire Marshal, DDOT, as well as MPD. And I think once we finalize those documents and we're on the same page, I guarantee it, Brian, we'll have Miss Edmondson, who's kind of our key person, and she'll be able to know. That way she knows who to send it to, because I can send it to you, Brian, and all of a sudden someone says, well, you didn't send it to me. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we collect kind of like maybe a PDF that has everything collected, including a PowerPoint, and then that way she can shoot it to you to distribute to the appropriate individuals from that standpoint. The key is our intent is to remain connected up until and even after our homecoming goes on. So I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time this evening.
Appreciate you. Thanks, everyone. And please enjoy and be safe. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next, we have Miss Emily Alexander with the Macmillan Advisory Group. So we could bring Emily up.
She should be promoted now.
All right. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me tonight. Just for clarity, I'm with Gyro Real Estate Partners, one of the developers at Macmillan. I think I sent you the Macmillan Advisory Group presentation, so I can understand.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarity. I have that presentation open if you want me to bring it up, or if you have one that you're going to do.
Yep, I can share. I changed, the title slide to match your guys' organization. So thank you again, commissioners and community, for having me. I'm going to run through this relatively quickly so that we can leave as much time as possible for questions, but also give the background needed. So brief agenda. I'll do a brief introduction on the firm and myself, the site background and the status, review the proposed changes that Gyro Lynch is making for parcels 2 and 4, a brief review of the community benefits that are already agreed to, just to remind everyone, talk about next steps. And then we do have an appendix of the Historic Review Board presentation or submission if there are specific facade questions that people have once we've reviewed the initial presentation. So for those that don't know, Gyro Lynch Real Estate Partners is a local real estate development firm that has been in business for over 26 years now. Started in 1998 by Gyro Lynch. He's still my boss. And it's a long tenured senior management team. We've been on the Macmillan project, now known as Reservoir District, for 15 years. I myself have been with the company for 7 years and been on and off of the project throughout that time. I'm sure as commissioners and community members in the area, you have also heard a lot about it. But we are a CBE diverse company that really cares about building really interesting spaces in the city. I'm a neighbor in Eckington even, so very close by. For those that aren't as familiar or don't recall, the formerly known as Macmillan site, now Reservoir District, is the large former water treatment facility bounded by First and North Cap and Channing Street and Michigan Ave. Gyro Lynch in particular has parcel 2 over here and parcel 4 right here, if you can see my mouse. Parcel 6 is the community center and park that opened this past June. Parcel 5 is the townhomes that are being built right now. I've heard their first closing is scheduled for Q1 of 2025, so hope that stays on track. And then parcel 1 and parcel 3 are owned by Trammell Crow and future medical office and support for the medical yields across the street, across Michigan. Just some project milestones. The land agreement was executed in Q1 2020. The district started work on the site in October of 2021. In September of 2022, all of the entities, EYA doing the townhomes, Gyro Lynch on the multifamily, and Trammell Crow on the medical office, closed on the land. And then 2 months later, we lost our second grocer lease, which was a fully executed lease in the second grocer, again, that we had fully leased that walked away from the site. So then in January of this year, we started negotiating with a new grocer tenant, as that is part of the requirements for the multifamily portion of this development. And that new grocer is about half the size of the original grocer, and I'll go into some more detail on that on further slides. but that requires us to submit a PUD modification in order to get for that to be allowable. And we are going in with some flexibility request as well with that PUD modification. This October, you all should have received a notice of intent as neighbors, or at least certain sub ANC members should have, so that we can get flexibility. Hopefully the lease we're still negotiating and hoping to announce soon does not walk, but we want flexibility in case they do, so that we don't have to delay the project. When we get to the next steps, you'll see that the PUD process itself takes about 1.5 years. So every time we would have to go back to a PUD, the project is delayed a minimum another 1.5 years. And there's construction of 2 years after that PUD process and a permitting process of 1 year with design. So we really want to minimize the potential future risk of further delay on this project. So previously approved, parcel 2 had 15,000 square feet of retail and 247 homes with a bridge connecting 2 buildings. 27 of those homes were affordable homes at 80% and 50% area median income. Parcel 4 had a 55,000 square foot grocer with 305 homes and 85 senior affordable homes with a mix of 50% and 60% area median income levels, and then building height and parking. And this is what it previously looked like, just some renderings to jog your memory. Now getting to the proposed modifications. One of the biggest shifts is moving the senior affordable to its own standalone building and removing that bridge on parcel 2. Since we had to go in for this PUD modification, we thought it would be a good opportunity to increase the affordable homes on site, because it does go from 85 and 27 to 135 with a net increase of around 30. It removes the connecting bridge, which I am aware was a sticking point when we first designed this building, and we'll look at some renderings that show the improvement that makes. And then it decreases the grocer square foot, but adds in additional retail on parcel 4 so that it really activates the street level more. And we'll again look at some renderings there. The parking and the building height have been modified to accommodate that program. So the parking has gone down a little bit, but so has the trip generation in the traffic studies that we've done so far. And the building height has been modified slightly, just again to accommodate the program so that we aren't too tight and making too small of units. This is just a summary of modifications that is included in the presentation that Brian has and can be distributed to the community if you would like to see side by side what was previously approved and what we're requesting. We are, as I mentioned, we're also requesting some flexibility. One of the biggest flexibilities in that is the grocer square footage. Right now, we're requesting between 6,000 minimum square feet and 22,000.5, which is the current lease we're negotiating. My next slide shows some references so that you can understand what that means in real life for a grocer. And then some flexibility in residential unit count, and anything that isn't retail would be converted to residential if we do shrink that retail square footage. One of the other flexibilities we're requesting is the opportunity to convert either P2 West, as we were calling it, the non-senior building, or a portion of parcel 4 to lodging in case that is a market that comes up. We want to be able to pivot quickly and absorb that. As someone who has lived in the area, I know there isn't a big hotel opportunity there, and it would be utilized by the medical community, by the residents in the area. I know my family would stay there if they had the opportunity to be close to families here. And then some more, like some smaller flexibility with design and exterior materials and parking, just so that if the program shifts, the remainder of the design can meet that program. So going to the big flexibility that I mentioned, the grocer size, we wanted to show some examples of 10 to 30,000 square feet grocers. The one that we're again negotiating right now is around 20,000, a little over 20,000. But as you can see, the Trader Joe's that we have in the city are between 13 and 15,000 square feet. The Aldi on Maryland Ave is around 18,000 square feet, and the Lidl in Columbia Heights is 27, so a little bigger than what we have. Under 10,000 square feet, there are several street markets in the Yes Organic in Brookland. I know that ANC 1E has a little bit better access to the Whole Foods on Florida Ave. So that is significantly larger than what we have available now. We spent that November 2022 time period to January 2024 seeking out another 55,000 square foot grocer or something more similar in size, but those grocers were not interested in expanding in this market. So right now, that's just not a market that is available to us retail wise. But who we're negotiating with now still is a full service grocer, still is going to feel like you can get your produce, your flowers, your protein, everything like that, prepared foods, unprepared foods. So give the same feel, just in a smaller footprint. To show what this looks like, parcel 2 on the main floor, we are again requesting some flexibility here, with this retail potentially going down to residential or switching over to residential, but that would not change the facade in any way or in major ways. But the big change is removing the bridge. So previously there was a bridge between these two buildings, and now it's a clear view from along 1 Quarter Street, which I believe is now called Platt Court. But I have to get better at those new names. And from the south, again, a clear view. You'll also notice that the balconies were removed from the senior affordable building, except for in the north facade, so that they still feel related and they still feel like siblings, but they make a little bit more sense for the programming internally. Moving on to parcel 4, this is the big shift of adding retail and commercial space in to fill in where the senior residential lobby was, as well as the larger grocer, but have that flexibility to decrease the size of the grocer if needed, although we hope not to. So you'll notice very little change here, except for our subtle branding change of who was previously approved and who we're negotiating with now. But from North Capitol, it looks very, very similar. We are requesting flexibility in materials that will look again the same, but have availability and price that will allow us to move forward. The biggest difference you'll notice in the parcel 4 is here, where previously, because the grocer took up the entire ground floor square footage, they did not want windows along Hazen Court or 1 Quarter Street. And with retail and commercial there, we can have a lot more activation and glazing. So that's the biggest difference on parcel 4. Briefly touching on the community benefits, just from the previously negotiated community benefits agreement, there is $500,000 for neighborhood beautification, some of which will go to the Bates Civic Association, the Bloomingdale Civic Association, Eckington, Edgewood, Hanover, and Stronghold. So if anyone of your constituents are members of those, that will be distributed currently over a 5-year time period prior to the certificate of occupancy, or starting first year at the certificate of occupancy for the townhomes and then the multifamily. And then next steps, as I mentioned, we have a historic preservation review board meeting tomorrow. We're on the consent agenda right now, as the facade changes are positive. If we have to change to any of the flexibility programs, we would have to go back to the historic preservation review board with those changes. But that process is a couple months versus a couple of years. So that is something that we're very happy to do if we have to modify. And we would also come back to community organizations if there were additional facade changes. We will be submitting for a mayor agent review, as that was also a governing document on this parcel. And then the PUD modification being submitted this October, which would lead to a set down in February, hopefully, and a hearing in June of 2025 with a construction start of June 2026, and fingers crossed a grocer in Q2 2028. But that, I know I went through that very quickly and I talked quickly, but I wanted to get in as much as possible. So happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners? See Commissioner Ray.
Thank you. For most of the folks that are watching, they probably actually, they live in 1E. You guys are actually over in Ward 5, so it is a little bit of a distance between most of our communities and your community. So if we're light on questions, it's because we know that our community is probably not as impacted as others. And to be honest with you, the only thing that caught my attention was when you said, and if others saw me talking because I was muted, was when you said you're taking the balconies away from the senior building. Can you talk about that? Because I don't quite understand what you mean by how it doesn't fit the programming. Why would the seniors not want balconies? Can you explain that?
Sure. So full transparency, it's because of cost.
Yeah, that's really what you meant to say. I'm sorry. That's what you meant.
No problem. It's a subsidized project. So every cost that we can cut, we do, and it doesn't change the rent of the unit. So it doesn't fit an affordable program to have balconies.
Was that, and I'd have to go back and, I mean, as you were kind of mentioning, this is a 15-year long, this is probably longer than 15 years. But was the use of those balconies, or was the talk of those balconies part of the original discussion? Was it used as a mechanism for explaining, well, we're doing balcony, was it a benefit that was sold during the reviews?
So parcel 4 originally had the senior affordable building in this portion of the E.
Yeah.
And it did not have balconies. It had bump outs, like it basically had what these balconies are, but are bump outs versus balconies. So the senior affordable has not had balconies for at least the entire approved program that I'm aware of since the initial PUD.
All right. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes, thank you so much, Emily, for being here as a resident who's testified in support of the McMillan. So now as a commissioner, I appreciate you being here and sharing these modifications and walking us through that. So for the bridge connection elimination, because that was such a huge, that was a big deal as we were pushing through the original designs. I just wanted to be clear. Can you just state the purpose of the elimination of the bridge connection?
Yes, so because we've moved the senior affordable to parcel 2 east, this building, there are fair housing concerns about connecting a senior affordable building and any non-senior building, non-senior age restricted building. So if they were connected at the bridge, there would be some fair housing hurdles that had to be worked through. So removing the bridge made sense at this point versus when they functioned as one market rate building. That bridge really supported the functionality of the space and allowed for shared amenities and everything like that. There will still be a shared garage, but because the units and residential portion are above grade and not shared, the bridge allowed that to be a little bit more seamless.
Okay, so it's to meet certain requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question is about this, the community benefits agreement. So it's unchanged, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but you were able to increase affordability elsewhere that was outside of the CBA.
Correct. Yes, the overall what we're requesting, and it is all dependent on available funding from DC. What we're requesting is an overall increase, I believe, of 27 units overall, 23, because we went from 85 in one building and 27 in another to 135 overall.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, I have one more question. Has there been any concerns from our neighboring ANCs and the neighborhood associations about these changes?
The one concern that we've heard a couple times and we're looking into is the minimum grocer size and flexibility. So we're looking at potentially increasing that 6,000 minimum to meet that concern and eliminate that concern. There's the ANC 5E voted to approve and support the HPRB submission. So facade wise, there has not been pushback that we've heard or received after the meetings. And then the Civic Association is looking into if they can update how this specific community benefits these specific community benefits are utilized and broaden that language. So we're working with them to see if that's something that we can support. I mean, we don't really care how the money is spent, but seeing if we can get it edited as would fit their needs. But those are the three main concern, or one concern and two less concerns than that we've had.
Thank you.
Right, other commissioners? I just had one clarifying question. While there's a net gain of affordable units, there is a transfer of all of the affordable units being age restricted to seniors.
Yes.
So there would be no affordable housing units with no age restrictions.
At this time, correct. We are talking about that with the Office of Planning, but the funding that we have been committed so far is required to have age restricted. So that may change, but right now it's senior only.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. All right, members of the public, any questions for Emily with respect to McMillan parcels 2 and 4? All right, we'll take them in the order in which they were received. And first up, we have Joycelyn Thompson.
Joycelyn, you should be able to speak.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. I am a volunteer ambassador for the DC Department of Aging and Community Living. So I perked up at the section of your presentation about seniors. Do I understand that the number, how many senior units will there be?
So the original approval had 85 senior units, and I should clarify the age that is restricted to is 55 and up. So it is a young senior, in my opinion, at least. And we are requesting to increase that to 135.
135. At this time, are there income limits? What's the income limit?
Yes, the income restrictions, I don't have the exact proportion of it, but is 30, 50, and 60. So with deeper affordability as well than what was previously approved, which was between 50 and 60.
Repeat that. 30.
We have 30%, 50%, and 60%.
30%.
Yep. And again, previously approved was 50 and 60%.
Okay. What should seniors be doing at this time if they had an interest?
Right now, there's nothing that can be done since we don't have approval to move forward. The earliest that this building would break ground is early 2027. So what, as a community, that we're encouraging is, we want to make sure the funding's available. So if they're paying attention to the DC HFA and DHCD funding, supporting our project would be great. But right now we aren't accepting applications. You are able to put your name on an email listserv through the Reservoir District website. So when we do open and when there is movement, they can be the first to know. But because the construction is a couple of years out, we're unable to take applications at this time.
What's a bunk out? I know what a balcony is, but what's a bunk out?
Bump out is kind of like our sun porches in row homes. It's the original housemate or the original facade, and I'll go back to so you can kind of see them here where they just are protruded from the main facade by a couple feet. And that's a small image, I know, but so if this balcony was enclosed, I mean, even this is considered a bump out. It's wider, but just something that is protruding from the main facade.
That one can step out. One can step out onto it.
No, not in the senior affordable. In the previously approved senior affordable, it was occupiable space that was just a little more narrow than your main unit, so you could walk onto it, but it wasn't an open air space.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Nelson.
Patrick, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Emily, can you briefly explain what funding the city is giving you for this project, and where the pools of money are coming from? I mean, it's been so long since this has been in the works. I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from now.
So we purchased the land with our equity partners, not with, I say not with district funding, but there were negotiations for the land price, so that the community benefits agreement and the land price are tied. But the senior affordable building currently has committed DHCD funding and will go for LIHTC bonds. So the affordable housing financing is the main portion, but that is only tied to the Parcel 2 East building. The Parcel 4 and Parcel 2 West buildings will be funded by private equity and our private partners.
Okay, so are you aware that there's I'm trying to think of the right word, a
Strain?
emergency legislation that's being brought forward to halt any funding from the preservation fund through the DC Housing Authority?
So this is, yeah, we wouldn't be receiving it from the preservation fund. The DHCD funding that has been approved is specifically for affordable housing, not for preservation of units, because they would be all new homes, not a preservation of homes. I do know that DHCD and DCHFA are working through some pains with the affordable housing funds that are available. That is the perk of the time frame that we are in, is that hopefully that, and the fact that we do already have a commitment from DHCD that's on the books and logged. So we aren't a brand new project looking for a bunch of brand new money. We're looking for a smaller part of the pie in a very desirable neighborhood to have that affordable housing. So we're working with them to make sure that those funds are available come 2027 when we start construction.
Okay, well, I'm just putting that bug in your ear because that's recent, and my understanding is that with all of the issues that have arisen, some I don't know what if any, some of the already committed funds are not going to be available. They're taking all of that and changing around because of some of the issues that have arisen with how they have spent money in the past with developments for affordable housing. And based on what I've heard, and I've not been able to substantiate it yet, that they're just going to stop giving out money, even though some of it's been committed. It's going to go to actual preservation of units that are already built, not any new ones. So you might want to just keep that in your back pocket and talk to the powers that be within your group to make sure that that doesn't affect you going forward.
Yeah, we're working very closely with Office of Planning, Zoning, and DHCD and DCHFA, because this is a project that, as we've mentioned, everyone has been on for a while. So making sure, and again, I think the time gives us a little bit of benefit here, and that they can, work out how to make sure the money exists when we need it versus needing it tomorrow, like a lot of projects do right now.
Right. And I would assume that you guys probably have been in connection with the ward council person that will also lobby on behalf of this project.
Mm-hmm. All right, Patrick, any other questions?
Nope.
All righty, thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Emily, thank you so much for coming in this evening, and thank you so much for being so diligent in communicating with Commissioner Newland and myself, who are abutting commissioners to the project. So thank you for being a great neighbor and community partner.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
All right, so team, I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so now we will go to Kendall Gibson, who is one of the newest members of the Mokers family in Ward 1. So if we could bring up Kendall. Hi, Kendall, how are you? Can you hear us?
Hi, everybody. Yes, sorry. it flashed.
You're good.
And then, can you see me?
I can hear you, but can't see you.
Okay, let's see now.
Yes. Now
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kendall Gibson, and I'm the newest addition to Mayor Bowser's Office of Community Relations and Services, otherwise known as MOKERS. And I'm representing Ward 1 in the MOKERS office. My Ward 1 partner, Anthony, was unable to be at the meeting today, so I welcomed the opportunity to just introduce myself in his stead and do a quick plug for Art All Night later this weekend. But first, as a member of the mayor's executive office and as a fellow Ward 1 neighbor, I live in Mount Pleasant. I'm here to help you manage issues specific to Ward 1 by connecting you with agencies and their services. I'm going to drop my contact information in the chat after this if you would like to connect on anything that you are seeking a resolution on, and that I can connect you with agencies and work with your case to see it come to fruition. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. But first, my plug. Anthony and I will be at Art All Night this weekend at the Lower Georgia Avenue Hub at 7th Street and Georgia Avenue. If you see Anthony and I, we'll be wearing these green polos, which we always wear whenever we're out in the community. Feel free to come up and say hi. I've been really enjoying meeting members of the community, and I've been meeting a few ANC chair members as well. Art All Night is an exciting event experience where musicians and artists come together to create like a fun evening atmosphere for shopping and dining. And I'll also drop information on Art All Night in the chat, because I went last year and it was so much fun, and it's a great opportunity to meet local musicians, artists, and restaurants in your area. Thanks everybody for your time, and I'll drop all of that information in the chat. But I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for Kendall? All right. Yes, Kendall, please send, if you can share the information about Art All Night, that'd be great. We can help pass it out.
Perfect. I will do that right now.
Thank you very much. All right, next we'll move on to Miss Estelle McKinney from Councilmember Nadeau's office.
Estelle has been promoted to panelist.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak with you all tonight, and I hope everyone had a great summer. For those who don't know me, I'm Estelle, and I'm Councilmember Nadeau's Constituent Services Specialist for Ward 1, specifically ANC 1E, 1A, and the east side of 1B. So I wanted to share some general updates and a few areas of focus from Councilmember this summer. So first and foremost, I wanted to highlight Councilmember Nadeau's work to call out the failing 911 dispatch center. So we have continued to see the Office of Unified Communications not prepared to handle emergency calls appropriately, as several recent very troubling incidents that were demonstrated this summer to us within the ward and the district as a whole. So it's time to make some drastic changes, and Councilmember is calling for the following. One, an independent review of OUC as called for by more than 100 ANC members. Second, council members propose legislation to separate fire and EMS calls from, from police calls, and have them managed by a call center staffed by the fire and EMS department, as they have the medical training and can get people the services they need quickly and accurately. And this council member hopes that this bill will get a hearing soon. Third, increase salaries and provide improved training for all call takers. And fourth, host a public roundtable held by the Committee on Justice and Public Safety that calls key city officials to testify, and they must answer why things have gone wrong, how bad things really are, and most importantly, what is their plan moving forward. And then on a more exciting note, I want to discuss some bus priority projects coming for ANC 1E. So first, the Columbia Heights Crosstown Bus Priority Project. This looks at safety and bus transit operations in several Ward 1 corridors and touches on intersections in ANC 1E. And I saw that they are presenting to the Transportation Committee next week, which is great. Second, I want to highlight the Georgia Avenue Bus Priority Project, which goes between Berry Place Northwest and Eastern Avenue along Georgia Avenue. And this aims to identify strategies for improving bus service, access to stops, and safety along Georgia Avenue. And they have a robust community engagement schedule that I'll share below in the chat. So you can bump that to your constituents. And lastly, the next Brienne on your block, also known as BOYB, which is an opportunity to meet with council member one-on-one to share feedback on any legislation or neighborhood concerns. And that will be in ANC 1E at Sunny's Pizza on October 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners? Right, hearing none. Still, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just saw the link come in, so we will make sure to share that as well. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Y'all as well. Take care.
All right. Now we'll move on to commissioners. I apologize, I did it in a little bit of a different order this evening. So commissioners, any announcements? Commissioner Brown.
Yes, I'd like to give an update on improvements to Bruce Monroe Community Park. As you know, it's a temporary park and there are long-term development plans for the site that we've been sharing through this ANC, through the New Communities Initiative. I'm just giving an update in response to some of the maintenance and repair issues that we've been experiencing, as well as substance abuse and open drug air markets. So for Bruce Monroe Park, I've been working with the council member's office, with the mayor's office, multiple agencies, Department of General Services, Public Works, and DPR to address some of the issues at Bruce Monroe Park. We're aware of the two gates that are in need of repair, that displays a safety issue with the gate being with two of the gates having an open space, being one of the few bars being knocked out. A work order with DGS is in place, and I have reported it, and they are working on installing repairs. We are also working to get the installation of additional public litter cans around the park to address some of the litter concerns, in addition to DGS cleaning up some of the litter that's currently there, removing some of the private cans that are there that are overflowing with illegal dumping. So we are working with DGS to address those issues. And then for the open air drug markets, there have been a few arrests that have been made this month. MPD is aware. They have some targeted efforts that are being that have been put in place to address that. We're working with the lieutenant commander and a few officers, so feel free to reach out to Zay and see if you have any questions. But there have been arrests that have been made to address the narcotic distribution. And then last, support some of the engagement with the folks that have been engaged with substance use issues. We have District Bridges has a service navigator on site that is continuously gauging residents that are at the park that are engaged in substance use. There have been also community engagement activities for the folks that are at the park. And then for the broader community, a meal distribution program. There are other services, housing services, youth engagement services that have been part of these activities. They're mostly family friendly, open to the larger community, and some that have been targeted to provide medical services, HIV screenings, legal aid, haircuts, and other services to support the folks that are at the park. So any other issues, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at 1EO4@anc.dc.gov. Just wanted to give that update for folks.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Jacobson.
Thank you, Chair Footer. Just wanted to give a quick update on some of the transportation projects, and I'm realizing actually Stell gave all these updates, but I am working on hosting a sidewalk palooza event. So we'll be walking around the community and finding issues with the sidewalks and reporting those to 311. I will likely be hosting 2 in the coming weeks. So one on Sunday, October 6th, around 2 p.m. If anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out. That will likely be focused more on my ANC district. And then I'm working on planning one with some of the Howard Student Senate leaders who I've been chatting with and wanting to learn more about how to get engaged locally. So that will likely be on the 13th, Sunday the 13th at 2 p.m. So if anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out. My email will be dropped in the chat.
Great. Any other announcements from commissioners? I have one quick one. So because we didn't have our meeting in August, I didn't have an opportunity to provide an update from August. On August 7th, I hosted, well, me and 3 other ANC commissioners from 1B and from 5E hosted a walkthrough of Casey Lewis to try and start to prioritize how we're going to spend the $1.2 million that was allocated in the FY25 budget. It was a really well attended event where we had 5 different agencies and came away with 15 different actions and recommendations that were directly coming from a survey and community outreach that we did in the neighborhood. And so really excited about the next steps from that and more to come on there. If anybody's interested in learning more about what's going on with Casey Lewis or what is Casey Lewis, please feel free to reach out to me at 1E07 at anc.dc.gov. We will be doing a bit of a push to try and get community input as we get more in the process with working with DPR on actually allocating those funds. So if you're interested, please reach out. All right. Now we'll move to members of the public. If you are joining us this evening and you would like to make an announcement, please feel free to raise your hand and we will call you in the order which we receive it. I do see that one person is joining us via phone rather than online. If you are interested in raising your hand, you can dial *9. And I see that we have Audra Grant. All right. Hi, Audra.
Hi, how are you? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so you can hear me, but you probably can't see me, correct?
Still can't see you. Nope.
Okay. I don't have a mechanism to show my camera for some reason. Am I not supposed to, or?
No, I mean, you should be able to if you have a camera.
We generally just allow people to talk unless they
Super.
are
That's
a presenter.
great. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So we have to bother with promoting to panelists.
Awesome. Okay, no problem. Great. So thank you, commissioners, for this time. Yeah, my name is Audra Grant, and I'm a candidate for ANC 1E02, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce myself. I've been in Parkview for almost 20 years now and happily involved in our community as, I would say, an advocate and a connector through participation in several organizations, specifically the Lower Georgia Avenue Main Streets Neighborhood Council, Georgia Avenue Thrive, of which I'm a founding member, and the Luray Water Neighborhood Association, and also as a member of the Park Morton Bruce Monroe Steering Committee. I've always enjoyed and place a great deal of importance on community engagement by linking residents with our local officials and agencies to address issues that have been important to folks like trash collection and service provision, affordable housing, and business development on Georgia Avenue and public safety. And I've done a lot of this through connecting folks individually, which has been a lot of fun, but also through meetings and really interesting family events that have brought the community together, like Winterfest at the Old Buries. Some of you may not remember that, but it's now Hook Hall. Fall Fest at Bruce Monroe Park, and also movie nights on Georgia Avenue. And what's really helped, I think, has been a lot of the collaborative relationships with ANCs, our council member, and law enforcement that I've used to get a lot of things done that I think have helped the community. I love Parkview. You know, those of you who know me on this call know that I love Parkview. I love the neighbors. I love the promise of this neighborhood. And I've been fortunate to have seen Parkview grow and evolve since I've lived here. And I really hope to be able to be a part of even more positive changes as a commissioner. So I'll be walking around the neighborhood soon. If any of you have any questions or want to chat about what's important to you, if you want to learn more about me and what some of my ideas and priorities are, I'll be coming around. And remember, you know, if you want to get anything done, you have to vote. So get out there and register. And I hope to see you on November 5th. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Grant? All right. Thanks for joining us, Ms. Grant.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public interested in making an announcement? All right. Seeing none, we will move to official business. Our official business has been organized in our 3 standing committees. The committee chairs will begin by providing a brief update on their committee's activities from September and also August, since we didn't have an opportunity to go through activities in August. Then we will walk through each item of business and have 5 minutes per item to present. They'll take questions from commissioners and then the audience members. We'll start off with Transportation and Public Space Committee, and I'll hand it over to Commissioner Jacobson.
Thank you, Chair Footer. For the Transportation and Public Spaces Committee this month, I mostly just talked about some of our goals for the coming year and for the rest of the year, and talked a little bit about the bus priority projects for Georgia Avenue and the Crosstown Connect through Columbia Heights. And then I know you have a separate resolution that we did not discuss at the committee level because it came up after the committee meeting. Our next meeting will actually be next Wednesday. And as Estelle mentioned, we will be discussing the Columbia Crosstown project, the early phases of that at that meeting. So if you want to learn more about that, come to that meeting. And do you want to talk about your resolution, Commissioner Footer?
Absolutely. So I will bring up the resolution. All right, so there are 2 parcels that are about to be developed right by my building in my SMD. One of them is Lot 3, which is the parking lot just south of the McDonald's. And the developers, I've been talking to developers over the past year or so about, you know, a variety of things, but one of which is the construction plan and how it's going to impact our neighborhood in 7 specific areas. So we built a really nice relationship over the past about year or so. Every quarter or so, I keep reaching out to them because the original timeline for construction has been consistently delayed. And in the last outreach effort that I did, they let me know that they were having some back and forth with DDOT on one particular issue in the construction plan that's really been holding it up. So we wrote a letter here to just kind of outline what the issue may be and some of the ANC's perspective on it, and a request for DDOT to kind of approve the construction plan. So as I mentioned, I met with them. Commissioner Jacobson and I actually both met with the developers on September 6th, and the name of the development company is called Quadrangle. And the specific thing that has been the holdup is the 1 block on Georgia Avenue, the west side of Georgia Avenue, between W and Bryant Street. So it's about 350 feet long. that stretch of land they would like to block off completely during construction. And the reason for that is because of the way that they are going to dig. It's going to go basically right up to the property line. And as such, the width of the sidewalk is not conducive for being able to have a walkway. And they've been trying to advocate, the DDOT has been trying to advocate to them that they need to have a covered walkway because of some of the construction that they're going to be doing vertically. Clearly. And so after speaking to them and them walking us through why they felt like it was not a good idea to try and have this walkway, and where the regulations provide an opportunity for DDOT to close the sidewalk completely, we went and we spoke to his name is Dr. Levan Petrosian, and had a really good conversation with him. Clearly wicked smart, had a lot of really interesting things to say, and I think that we just happened to disagree on the impact on the community, and how we should be applying some of these rules. So with that, we wrote this letter basically outlining the 3 specific aspects of why we agree with the development company that closing the sidewalk is just the easiest route here. And one is the pedestrian traffic. So first of all, the pedestrian traffic that is on the west side of Georgia Avenue is primarily coming over to utilize the parking lot. Well, a building is about to take over the parking lot. The parking lot is not going to exist anymore. On the other side, on the west side of the street, there are 3 specific businesses that are just in this one block, and it's the Starbucks, Howard University Bookstore, and a Chase Bank. And so people are not necessarily going to be walking on the west side of the street in order to get to those businesses. So the majority of pedestrian traffic is going to be on the east side, and it is the entire area is conducive for holding much more than whatever the pedestrian traffic is at its current state. So 2, the sidewalk width on the east side of the street, I'm sorry, the west side of the street, what we're talking about, in order for certain points of the sidewalk, it's 3 feet, it would be 3 feet wide at the property line, and then it would be 7 feet wide. So it's not, it kind of breaks up a couple of times. And in order for them to have a walkway, it has to be 5 feet wide. And so therefore, the walkway that they would want to install, or DDOT is trying to have them do, would have to go into the street. And we are very lucky on Georgia Avenue that we have a curbside joint bus and bike lane, which is marked by that red colored pavement. And so it would disrupt, it would bleed into that joint bike and bus lane. And so we're saying that, we don't want to disrupt the bike and the bus lane for this walkway. The pedestrian traffic in this one block area is just not going to be there. And there are 2 side crosswalks that are actually part of a stoplight crosswalks. They're not just like pedestrian first kind of crosswalks. They're actually physical lights there at either end of it. And so there is safe and easy natural ways to reroute pedestrian traffic if they were on the west side. And therefore, we're overall just suggesting for them to close the street and not disrupt the bike and the bus lane. The last piece in here is basically articulating in different words that we don't feel like they should be adding bureaucratic red tape to the development company, therefore making this process much, much longer. They were supposed to break ground in March. It is now towards the end of the calendar year, and a lot of it is due to some of this particular aspects. And so basically trying to ask them that, please understand that the means don't just what they're doing is not justified in the fact that the volume and the safety of being able to reroute pedestrians is not worth the bureaucratic mess that they are actually doing here. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'll ask if there are any questions about this letter. Commissioner Jacobson, I'm just going to call to you really quickly because you were on that call with me. Is there anything you want to add? Was there anything that is in this letter that was different from what you may have understood?
Nope, this is an accurate summary, and I agree with the conclusions in it.
Great. All right, if there are no questions from commissioners, I'll ask members of the public. Any questions with respect to the letter to DDOT articulating the case that I see Mr. Patrick Nelson. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Brian. I just a couple of quick comments. One is I'm sure you're well aware that DDOT is the elephant in the room, and trying to persuade them to do anything that's outside of their norm is like trying to make the earth turn in its different axis.
Very well put.
That said, I think that what you're asking for is not out of the norm. It will be some inconvenience to those people that walk on that side of the street, like I have many, many times. But I think that, and I don't know how you can do this, you need to have some other examples as to why you want to do this, because if you go up to 14th Street now, which has bus lanes and bike lanes, there's a project that's currently under construction that's doing exactly what DDOT is saying they want these guys to do. It's right out in the street. For a certain amount of time, they closed off and made you walk across the street. And now they put the walkway, they moved it. And then there's another one at Harvard Street that's also similar. So I just don't know that your argument is strong enough for DDOT to say, okay, let's go ahead and do it. Since they'll have other instances of examples where they'll say, well, this is what we're doing here and there. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that you're asking for this, but I think you need to be a little bit more forceful or have some more juice in there to give them some real push on that, because they're just going to stick in the mud and they're just going to say, too bad, we're not going to agree to this.
Okay. I would love your help in trying to identify some of those instances. So when we make a motion for this, I'll add with to approve this with some sort of addition to including examples of cases where DDOT has executed the specific regulation that I'm citing here. It's section 3315.4A1. And I would love your help looking for some of those examples.
Okay, I will certainly be willing to do that.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the public? Right, seeing none. Any other questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Jacobson.
Thanks, Commissioner Footer. I guess I'd want to be careful with how we add that language in here, because I don't want us to be tied to finding examples and maybe we can't find an example and then we just have this weird placeholder in the letter when we can just like add it when the letter gets sent as like here are some examples of where we've seen this. And if we don't find examples, then we just don't include that.
I do know the developers do have examples that they had mentioned. I should go back and ask them about it, where they've said that they've themselves have done this. But your point is well taken. If we do not find examples that are closely aligned to this, that really give it kind of the chutzpah that Patrick Nelson is mentioning, and it may not help our cause. But I do think that there are some out there, and the developers can help us kind of cite those too. So maybe to your point, we can put it in. We can approve this with the hope to include examples, and if we don't have examples, if people are fine with it going as is, then we can do that. Yeah. So I'm going to try to do this motion myself. So I put forth a motion to approve the letter to DDOT supporting Howard University's Lot 3 construction plan, and to include examples of DDOT executing section 3315.4A1 if appropriate. If it is not appropriate, the examples are not appropriate, then we will send as is. How's that motion?
I second it.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Any nays? Signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Any abstentions? All right, hearing none. With 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes and the letter is approved. I think that's the first time that we've actually voted on something without unanimous motion with unanimous consent in a while. I feel a little rusty. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Commissioner Jacobson, anything else with your report?
Nope. Just next meeting is a week from today.
Great. All right. I will pull the agenda back up. All right. So next we'll move on to Zoning and Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Ray.
Good evening, everyone. So the committee did not meet in August, but we did meet in September. And the only topic on the agenda was one of the issues that we're going to discuss next, which is the Howard University campus plan change. And I'm assuming you're bringing that up. Just need to change. Sorry, I have the screen so that I can see you all very clearly, and I need to move it so that I can see the actual document here. There it goes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Howard University they had to change its campus plan so that a new building could be built. That building has actually already been constructed. It's at 2711 Georgia Avenue. Someone will remind me here in a moment what the actual name of that building is, but it doesn't matter. The Oliver, thank you. But the address is 2711 Georgia Avenue. The building is done, and Howard University is realizing that they actually could use the space for campus housing, mostly at the graduate student level. And so they would like to re-amend the campus plan to bring this building back into the campus, be considered part of the campus, so that effectively the building would be exempted from inclusionary zoning requirements, which would require them to set aside, I believe it was a number of 12 units that would then be dealt with through the lottery system that DCHD uses in order to give out the first come ability to get into these apartments at a reduced rate. So instead, they would be used as dormitory units, which don't have inclusionary zoning requirements towards them, and they'd be filled with students instead. Students or staff, required to be students or staff. So this amendment, this resolution does support the idea. The committee was in support of making this modification to the campus plan so that this building would come online as a dormitory, primarily for the purpose that I know Howard University has a need to have its students be as close to campus as possible. Making them travel or find other arrangements is both inconvenient, expensive, and creates a lot more traffic. I mean, I lived on campus when I went to college, and I didn't have a car a lot of the time, or didn't use a car a lot of the time. So that's a very positive thing, I think, for the community in many ways. It doesn't make any other changes. The number of students that can attend Howard University remains the same. That doesn't change the building anyway. It's already been constructed. So the only change is this ability to use it as a dormitory as opposed to private housing. And as I said, the committee was in support. So if there are any questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, we'll move this forward. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? All right. Seeing none, we will move to members of the community. If you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand. Patrick Nelson.
I have a couple of comments. One is just a functionary comment. Brian, you sent me an email and said that you were going to post all this stuff so I could read it before the meeting. And that never happened. I couldn't find it on the website or anything. So this is the first time that I'm seeing this. That's my first comment. My second comment is that I was unable to attend the zoning meeting due to the fact that I got a notification the day before the meeting that the meeting was going to be held. And I was on an airplane flying back from Las Vegas when the meeting was happening. So I did listen to the meeting after the fact, and I had a very heated discussion with the legal counsel at the university, and one of the representatives of the real estate group. It's not going to change anything in the sense of I'm only one person and I don't rule the world, but I am very offended by how the university has done this whole request and its lack of transparency in how it brought it to the community, and how personally I take it as an affront that it is I'll say using the community to its own benefit. That said, I just don't, this is kind of hard for me to read because it's kind of small, but I think your wording in this second whereas is not correct and needs to be modified.
Let me just stop you right there because that wording is directly from the Office of Planning's document. So I took the Office of Planning's, the document that they have already submitted to the Zoning Commission in support of this application. And I just word for word so that we would have exactly what the modification is. So if you're modifying mine, you're modifying the Office of Planning, and I'm not going to recommend that. Just to put it out there for you.
Okay, well then I won't.
Second whereas, the first and the second whereas are directly copy pasted from the document from the Office of Planning. So I feel pretty confident in those.
Yeah, well, I won't argue with you on that, Michael, since I've already, like I said, I've already had conversations with the university, and that has been transposed to the zoning commission, so they're aware of the issue.
Although let me go back, because I do recall that we had this conversation before the meeting took place, and I recall an email from you saying, or maybe it was a call. I'm just trying to make sure I understand this, but that you had kind of come to an understanding with Howard University on this particular issue. Is that seems no longer to be the case? Am I misremembering that conversation?
Yes and no. I mean, the understanding that I came to was before I found out some additional information, which was transposed to me, and the only reason why I'm even saying anything is that I wanted to make sure that ANC understands what the university is doing and how, once again, they're using the ANC to their benefit and not being transparent in what's going on. And I won't go into the details of what was discussed in that meeting because I told the parties that I would not divulge that. It would be between me and them, and that was done. I did receive an email from Cynthia stating that she took my comments and has forwarded that to the zoning commission so that they are aware of it. She was supposed to have a conversation with Teresa Edmondson to talk to Brian to make sure he understood the language that they wanted in here. But like I said, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to voice my opinion so that it's out there on the record. And the only issue that I would have in the language here is the use of the word dormitory. And that was one of the things we discussed in our meeting because they're not using it just as a dormitory. It's being used for faculty, staff, and students. And there's a difference as far as the zoning commission is concerned with the wording of just being used as a dormitory. So
that's fair. And I will say, as I'm sure you noted, they did say during our meeting that it would be faculty, staff, and students.
Right.
But the dormitory, the exemption for a dormitory language is coming from the Office of Planning. That's certainly a good question to bring up to them at the hearing. I don't know if you're thinking of attending, but they can explain that their use of that term to the zoning commission as well. But I'm assuming that there's a specific exemption here within the IZ language, and that's why it's being worded that way.
Right. And that is correct. It has to do with the way they're asking for it. And it's because of the inclusionary zoning units that we're losing.
Yeah. And to be clear, I think it would be helpful maybe for you to say a few more words on what impact do you think this has on the community that is negative? I mean, I think I have an idea, but I mean, can you be more explicit?
Well, I don't want to drag on for too long, but I will say, Michael, that, for myself personally, I spent a lot of time, hours and hours and hours and hours working with the university to come up with the plan that was adopted through the zoning commission to extract these properties. And it was done specifically for a specific purpose. And it was agreed to by the university and approved by the zoning commission. And then I find out that the university wasn't being honest in its negotiation of which parcels it wanted to remove because it had other ideas in its head and then changed its mind midstream and then turned around and changed its mind again. And it's extremely frustrating to me as somebody who has worked for close to 20 years with the university on trying to do things for the benefit of students when I have nothing to do with the university in that sense, and lobbied on behalf of them and got projects pushed through the zoning commission that they didn't even know how to do and got them to get benefits that directly help the university, and then for them to turn around and pull this.
Hey, Patrick,
classify as a stunt.
I'm so sorry to cut you off here, but I do want to, I agree with Michael. I think everybody is very familiar with your impressive tenure working with Howard University. And I'd really like to hear from you less of the emotional impact that you may be feeling from Howard University, maybe going back on some of the conversations you may have had, and more of your opinion on what the negative impacts on this are going to be in the community. Can you actually focus on some of those pieces?
Well, the only true negative effect is the fact that we are losing a building that was supposed to be rental for general public and 12 affordable units that no matter what the university says will probably stay in the university's realm forever. It's 12 affordable units that are gone. And that to me is something that the community should be really upset with, in the sense of, when you fight to get something and then they take it away. It's not like they offered something else. They did it for their advantage so that they could use it, and it's gone. They can say that it'll come back in 5 years. Well, I already know that's not going to happen. So we've lost 12 units of affordable housing that and I say we, meaning the community, fought really hard to get. And it was a lot of work, and now they're gone.
Thank you, Patrick. I mean, again, I didn't want to put your words out there, but I thought it was important for you to get a chance to say that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, any other comments or questions?
Not relating to this. I have other issues with the university, but I won't say them.
The two things I just want to kind of point out or respond to, Patrick. One, you were correct. You did email me, and I did. Hopefully, I responded in a timely manner, indicating that we were still working on things, and as soon as it was done, I would make it available. And just due to timing, it happened yesterday, and I did not have enough time to send you the materials. So, unfortunately, the timing of this did not happen in the way that was suitable for you. Second is that as we always do, and as we will continue to do, all of our meetings are tried to be scheduled on a regular time so that people can be aware and it can be predictable. And so the meeting that was happening with the Zoning and Economic Development Committee was at a regularly scheduled, regularly announced, regularly advertised meeting. So I'm sorry that you were not able to attend. Other members, voting members of the committee were there, people with just as much of a distinguished history as you do, and sounded like the collective knowledge and based on the arguments that the Howard University was making in the benefits it's having for students to stay on campus, and it was persuasive enough for the committee to recommend to the ANC.
And let me just say this, Brian, I'm not against the fact that they're making it a student housing. I don't really give a hoot and hell about that, to be totally honest with you. My issue, 100%, is how they went about it. Once again, they're not being forthright in what they're doing. They want the community to work with them on things when it's in their benefit, and when it's not, they play the shell game and expect that you're going to just do whatever they want to do.
And I think we can have that conversation around strategy and politics outside of this, but I think that for the ANC's purposes for today, I think we're looking at the merits of what the community impact is going to be on this particular situation. So, Patrick, if there are no other questions, we do have some more business to get to, and I would like to move it along, but I want to be respectful if there's anything else that you wanted to discuss with respect to the merits of this particular resolution.
No. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good. Commissioner Ray.
The only thing I will end on before we make a motion, because I see someone raise their hand. I'll get, actually, Rashida, why don't you ask your question first, or Commissioner Brown?
It's not a question, but just that, when we were ANC 1A, we did pass a resolution supporting a comprehensive plan to support the goals of the comp plan, which includes plans to collaborate, partner, and expand Howard University to increase student housing and affordable housing in the community. So this resolution and the zoning application would help support that. So I just wanted to address the commission and sharing that there are both community benefits and that are aligned with the city's commitment to Howard University and supporting its goals, both on campus and in the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. And I agree. I mean, again, even everything that we've talked about this evening, I feel that this particular change is still beneficial to the community in that, having students closer to campus in a price range that is probably a little more conducive, because as the university explained during our meeting, they're not benefiting in any financial sense from this, as you know, the housing is handled through a leasing agent, then takes care of all of that, you know, which is part of the cost structure. They financed the building of the building themselves. They financed, I'm not gonna say themselves, but they had it financed. It wasn't financed by the city. But I would agree with some of the sentiment that Patrick Nelson brought forward, in that I got the impression that the university did not necessarily want to do a presentation to us the first time around, and I kind of had to force that issue. So the ANC does do its due diligence, as we always try to bring these issues forward and make sure that there's opportunities for the community to hear it and see it, and then, you know, make their impassioned pleas as to how we can do it better in the future, either through us or through the university or through the zoning commission. So I think everything that Patrick is doing is certainly commendable and helpful. And I think we'll support this evening, but, you know, we'll take everything that he's saying to heart.
And to that point, I will just be transparent. I agree with Patrick on that and have vocalized that in a very lengthy conversation with Ms. Edmondson, and I feel very assured that this was a one-time incident and not a pattern of behavior, that something may have fallen through the cracks, or something may have gotten missed, but it was not intentional to try and pull the wool over our eyes or anything like that. But still doesn't make it right, and it still is something that we need to express that they need to be better at. And I think that we will continue to do that and stand strong in making sure that they know that we are a partner in this, and they do need to come to us about things. So with that, if there are no other questions, is there a motion with respect to the resolution supporting Howard University's campus plan amendment zoning commission case 2008C?
Yeah, I was kind of waiting.
Mr. Jacobson looks frozen. So Mr. Ray, or Commissioner Ray, do you have a motion on your own?
He's moving again. He hears it.
Sorry, I misheard you there. I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the resolution as written.
Is there any dissent? All right, hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. All right, and there's one other resolution for you, Commissioner Ray, and I will pull that up.
I'll jump in. It was for a
Okay.
settlement agreement for Medusa Lounge. It's under new ownership. They agreed to the same terms that the previous ownership did for Medusa Lounge. The language is the same between settlement agreements. The only difference is that when we passed our settlement agreement last year, ABCA said that some of the language that we had did not meet code, so we had to have it removed when they agreed to it. So that language is no longer in here because it's not enforceable anyway. But otherwise, I've been meeting with the new business owner, and he wants to work with the community and is happy to be opening up the establishment again. But it's got the standard, you know, be mindful of parking for residents, be mindful of noise. Yeah.
Great. Any questions for Commissioner Jacobson? All right. Any questions from members of the public? Patrick Nelson.
Josh, I had to step away to go use the little boys' room, so I'm not seeing any of this. But a basic question is: this is the exact same settlement agreement that was there before, correct?
Yep. The only difference is that there was some language in the previous one that was not enforceable that ABCA said needed to be removed, so that's removed.
That's what I thought, because when I talked to the owner, he said that everything was going to be the same, and I just wanted to make sure that that's the way it is. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions, I'll now accept a motion.
I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the settlement agreement as written.
Is there any dissent? All right, hearing none, motion passes and the resolution is adopted. All right. Next, Commissioner Ray, was there any thing else you wanted to share or discuss before moving?
No, only
Hey,
that.
Frank, I just wanted to check and make sure, and I think I actually found the answer after like.
I think that might have
We're
been. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a question there. The only that the next meeting will be Wednesday, October 9th. I don't at the moment see that we have any particular cases on the docket, but that doesn't mean things won't change before that.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, now moving on to Public Safety and Engagement Committee with Commissioner Newland.
Thank you, Chair Footer. One resolution and one sponsorship application. Our committee did not meet in September. We had some logistical issues. But the first resolution is about a report from the DC auditor. It was actually released the day after we were supposed to meet, so we wouldn't have discussed it anyways. Anyways, the auditor came out with a report looking at some of the different staffing on MPD and basically found that rather than having to hire additional officers, which I think is something that MPD frequently asks for, there's some ways to kind of rebalance the system, especially when looking at the 3rd district, which is about half of this ANC. So putting this resolution together just gives some background in terms of what how the report was conducted and the different kind of research they did. It's 18 months, a number of different agencies and different specialists. Anyways, the findings that they have basically 17 like specific recommendations that originally hadn't been listed. It was a little bit too verbose, so I took that out. But the things that are most significant for our ANC is that basically 3rd district has a huge shortage of patrol officers. And then also a shortage of special investigators. I think the official title is district detectives. So basically they're calling for like rebalancing some of the operational staff and people that are sworn officers to be rebalanced throughout the city, and specifically to the 3rd district so that we have more of those folks. And then another specific recommendation was around changing some of the roles and responsibilities for MPD. Where it makes it so that they're not necessarily responding to every single call and instead relying on other city agencies or community groups to respond to certain things depending on what the issue is. So anyways, I think in sum, it's just calling on, MPD and the mayor, city council to, really take a look at this report and take it into consideration when they're making actual policy recommendations and changing how MPD functions, because I think it can have a huge benefit for their district specifically and our ANC. But happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Right. Members of the public, any questions with respect to resolutions supporting the DC Auditor's MPD report published on September 12th? Right, seeing none. I guess I just want to say, Commissioner Newland, thank you for putting this together and having a good eye and just kind of keeping out for a number of those things. And I was really happy to read some of these things. I didn't have a full chance to read the entire auditor's report, but thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Sure.
All right, if there are no other questions, I will now accept a motion.
I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the resolution as written.
Right. Is there any dissent? Hearing none, motion passes and the resolution is adopted. There is a question from a member of the audience if we could share the link from the report. Commissioner Newland, do you have that readily available? Awesome. If you don't mind putting that in the chat, that would be great. All right. And then there is a final resolution. And I know that this is actually something that Commissioner Ray, you were putting together, working on, correct? So Commissioner Newland, if you want to put that link in the chat, and Commissioner Ray, you can kind of talk to this.
I can, and I did this in my capacity as the treasurer but it actually fits in Commissioner Gallagher's district, just so people understand. Or it doesn't really, actually it doesn't.
Budding, yeah.
I shouldn't even say that, because technically the person who asked for it lives in Commissioner Gallagher's district, but the event happens somewhere else. The Friends of the Soldiers Home is a group that is established by residents in the Parkview neighborhood in order to better connect the residents with the folks who live at the Old Soldiers Home, which is now called the Army. Oh, I'm blanking now. AFHC, the Air Force. Shoot. You'd think I would remember this after all these years. The Armed Forces Retirement Home, the Armed Forces AFRH. So they do two events, big events throughout the course of the year, one at 4th of July and one here in the fall, in order to kind of bring people onto the campus of the Soldiers Home, which used to be more publicly accessible, but is no longer the case. But this is, again, one of those few ways to kind of, bring the community a little closer. And the Fall Fest will be held on, it's in here, September the 28th. It is held on the grounds, which is nearby. You can just walk right up Rock Creek Church Road and access the facility from there. It's a $1,000 request to help defray the costs of renting tables, chairs, and tents. And this application was reviewed by the Office of the OANC, which then provides us with a report saying that it does meet the requirements of the law, so we can be assured that we would get reimbursed if we do approve of this particular grant request. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Mr. Jacobson.
This is more of a quick comment, but Commissioner Ray, my understanding is that we have quite the budget remaining for these sorts of grant applications and generally. So this is more of a call to action that if there are members of the community that have grants that they're looking for, please reach out to your resident commissioner to chat through them. Thanks for putting this together, though, Commissioner Ray.
That's a good point. I think we had budgeted about $8,000 for the year, and even with this one, I think we hit about 5,000 and some change. So even if and the thing is, and you're going to see in a few minutes that we actually have a balance right now of about $30,000 in the bank. We have the funds. We have the funds to do more if people have ideas. But I will, with the caveat that we are very limited on the kinds of things that we're allowed to reimburse for. So, and we cannot do it to individuals. We have to do it to organizations. But point taken.
You can ask, and we can always say no.
Well, I mean, we might have, we'll send it like
OANC.
to the office of the OANC. They can do the review. They can give us their legal opinion on whether they have a lawyer. They can tell us their legal opinion on whether or not the application meets the law requirements of the law. And they'll work with you. We'll work with the community member to help them get there if they think they can see a path. That's the one other good thing about having an attorney on staff now.
Any other questions? All right. Any questions from members of the public? right, seeing none. If there are no other questions, I'll accept a motion to pass the resolution granting application for Friends of the Soldiers Home $1,000.
I make a resolution with unanimous consent that we adopt the resolution as written.
Any dissent? All right, hearing none, motion passes and the resolution is adopted. Anything's open on my screen. All right, Commissioner Newland, any other announcements or anything else for your report?
Yeah, just briefly that in terms of the public engagement piece, we do have a neighborhood cleanup Saturday, October 5th at 11 a.m. Meeting spot is Morton and Georgia Avenue. And this is organized by Georgia Avenue Thrive. And as a reminder, we're doing 2 neighborhood cleanups per month. Georgia Avenue Thrive puts together the first one, and then the ANC puts on the 2 weeks after that. We haven't planned the details for that one later in October yet, but we're sure those will be happening. So neighborhood cleanup October 5th, 11 a.m. Morton and Georgia. And then our next meeting for the Public Safety and Engagement Committee is going to be Monday, October 14th at 7 p.m.
Awesome. And Commissioner Newland, just a heads up, I had an opportunity to meet with Kendall Gibson, the new Ward 1 Moker, who had expressed interest in helping with some community cleanup. So I put her in touch with Daniel directly, as I know he's on your committee, kind of runs or helps to organize the community cleanups.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All righty. Well, next on our agenda is the ANC 1E budget, the resolution for the FY25 budget. So with that, I have brought up the resolution from last year just so we can see what the allocation was that we had done before. And then Commissioner Ray, Treasurer Ray's proposed budget for this year. So give me one moment as I just pull these 2 things up. But if there's anything, Commissioner Ray, that you want to start kind of chatting about or explaining.
Well, yeah, when you bring it up, as I mentioned, we do have a balance of about $30,000. We do have some expenses that have to be paid, so we don't, I guess, technically have all 30,000, but I don't have the specifics of those dollars until we write the checks. But that will carry over into the new year, which begins on October 1. We will receive 4 new allocations of roughly $4,000, a little $4,000 and some change a piece. It comes to a total of $18,740, which gives us a grand total for the year of $49,434. I have then taken that, and based on what we said we were going to spend this year, much of which we did not. We did not actually spend a lot of things. I just put the money back into similar categories and upped a number of those categories, given that we have more dollars to spend. Personnel and direct office costs, I kept it, they're at $3,000. We've never actually hired anyone. The commission next year could decide to do that, or anytime could decide to do that, and you'd have the dollars to do this. If we wanted to rent an office, we can try to rent an office, but again, that's not necessarily been something we've really needed to do. And then everything else, I just increased the dollars, particularly for the grants, because we simply have the money to spend if we so chose. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the only, the other category actually always tended to be the $50 we had to spend for bonding, but that requirement, as I understand it in the law, has gone away, and so that won't even happen. But I still left $100 in there just in case. Not sure what else they put into the other category though, but I didn't want it to be blank. And the bank actually hasn't been charging us as far as I have noticed, but I got to double check that, whether or not our account, which is a business account, will incur any fees. But if you do want to reorder checks next year, because right now the checks have my home address on them, you decided that that's not what you want, I don't know if it really matters, but you could reorder checks and you'd have money for doing those kinds of things too.
Thank you. I do just want to ask commissioners, is there anything that you guys are experiencing in over the past 2 years or so that you've been paying out of pocket that is directly contributing to like your ANC work that we should be talking about and putting funds in here and like educating ourselves and how we get reimbursed for it? An example is I know Commissioner Jacobson, you do a quarterly newsletter. Are there any printing costs that you have associated with that? Anything of that nature? Like these funds are directly meant to help you guys, all of us, not just you guys, all of us, be able to operate as a commission. So if there are things that you're doing on your own dime, like we clearly have the money. Commissioner Brown.
Not me individually yet, but just considering the cleanup effort that we have going on and spearheaded by Commissioner Newland and with Daniel. I'm just wondering if any ideas or, things that have come up where they could be ANC expenses to help support the efforts going on there.
I was part of those conversations and absolutely suggested that, and they didn't need anything at the moment, but they definitely said that they will let us know if something comes up with district bridges and Commissioner Lillen. I'm so sorry. The name of the other organization.
George Avenue Thread.
Yes, they had been working with the mayor's office, and the mayor's office had been very generous with providing materials and equipment. So they felt like they were pretty well supplied at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Jacobson.
I was just going to say, since you asked me directly, all of my printing is done through the ANC, so they are paying for all of it.
There you go.
But fair point that I could probably do a better job reaching out to residents of larger apartment buildings and would need to pay for postage if I do that. So I might consider that for next time.
Yeah. And then, Commissioner Ray, can you give a little bit of guidance kind of on that note? Like, what is the line? Like, what are common things that like we can't spend this money on?
So we can't spend the money on food and entertainment. So that kind of goes out, so that, in terms of having like a party or an event, it becomes harder. But when we're talking about printing, postage, surveys, we already, we've had those magnets done and table covers, and we can have a tent, we could have, there are any number of things that we can have as an ANC that support, this, it supports the work of the ANC. So those would be things. We can't give other people that stuff, so we can't buy a tent and then have somebody else have it. So it couldn't become the property of another organization like Thrive, but we could have those things ourselves.
Are there any additional like promotional materials that we may want to get? We have magnets or t-shirts, like anything of that nature that would be helpful to get our messaging out there. Commissioner Newland, you were the last one to use the table cloth magnets. Do people pick up magnets? Is that no?
Not very many, unfortunately.
Do we want to maybe look into get like pens, something that might be a little bit more desirable?
I'd be open about it.
I mean, the purpose of today, of course, is just setting the budget. I'm noticing now, the total of the distributions is still only $23,000, but our total budget is really 49. So there's considerable resources there that we can expend. You guys can modify. I won't be here, unfortunately, next year with you all. You can modify
just in a different capacity.
Yeah, well, but you can modify this You guys can modify this at any time. You can kind of overrule it with a vote at the, this is just, it is a requirement that we have something in place, but it is not, it's certainly not set in stone.
And I asked that more in the sense of like, now would be a time to move things around. Like if somebody realized that they had something and we needed to put it in like communication or what is local transportation? Is this a requirement? Like what?
Well, so all of those categories are set and we don't get to change those. And I honestly, I guess there's always other, which would be the catch-all, but these are what we're required to do. So local transportation, we're not allowed to pay for anybody to leave the District of Columbia. But if you had to travel, let's say on Metro, to get to some meeting, you could get reimbursed for that if we put money in there and paid for your reimbursements. I would not say you could rent a car. I'm just going to put I'm not going to go there.
All right. Any other questions with respect to the budget? All right. Seeing none. If there are no other questions with the budget, then I will accept a motion to approve the budget for FY25.
I make a motion with unanimous consent that we adopt the budget.
Is there any dissent? All right. Hearing none, motion passes and the budget is approved. Commissioner Ray, I know that there's a blanking on the timeline of when we need to send this out, but I will get this in the system tonight just in case we're getting close to that timeline.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we're good on to be honest, I think we're good on the budget. I'm not sure if they need us they may want me to enter that data into their system. Actually, the one that would be helpful if you could get by early tomorrow is the resolution on Howard University's campus plan, because technically that meeting was scheduled for tomorrow, but I don't know if they asked for an extension because of our timeline. It wasn't clear to me what that letter was about.
Yep, I'll do it as soon as we're done.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I will bring back the agenda. And then I know that we pushed the FY24 budget report to next month. So we'll have that as one of the things for next month. Cool.
Yeah, it'll be full because, we still have a week and I said there are checks to write. So I didn't want to make a guess.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to maybe mention to the director that the budget has a space for balance forward, but the year isn't over. So I'm not quite sure how you want us to do that if we do this in September.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there any other business before the commission that we need to address? All right. Hearing none. There's no other business before the commission. I'll now accept a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
And those opposed? I think Commissioner Jacobson is opposing. He really wants us to continue to stay on. He misses us is what it really is. Are there any abstentions? None. All right. Well, with 4 out of 5 commissioners saying aye, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes and we are adjourned. The next general meeting of ANC 1E is going to be on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Announcements and other information about ANC 1E are available at anc1e.org. Again, that's anc1e.org. Please feel free to contact any commissioner with any questions, and thank you very much for a productive evening. Have a great night.
See ya.
Thanks all.